Louisiana Eats is brought to you with support from Zatarain's, maker of New Orleans pantry staples like Creole mustard, fish fry, and jambalaya mix since 1889. Recipes and more at zatarains.com. From our studios in the Southern Food and Beverage Museum in New Orleans, this is Louisiana Eats. I'm Poppy Tooker. Over the last few years, the dining category of breakfast and brunch have simply exploded across the nation. Here in New Orleans, the city where in the mid-1800s, Madame Biguet literally invented the meal we know today as brunch, the Ruby Slipper Caf has prospered and multiplied in a way that Jennifer Weishaupt and her husband Eric could never have anticipated when they opened their first mid-city location in 2008. Jennifer's here with the latest news of what's become one of New Orleans' greatest exports. Then, we'll explore the experience of gospel brunch with Brizella Briscoe of the Zion Harmonizers, who've been uplifting and inspiring since 1939. Finally, we're pulling out all the stops for the country's latest sensation, Drag Queen Brunch. We'll introduce you to some of the rollicking queens that make Poppy's pop-up drag brunches one of the hottest tickets in town. Grab your bottomless mimosa and get ready for an unforgettable Louisiana Eats.
My name is Jennifer Weishaupt. I'm the founder and CEO of the Ruby Slipper Restaurant Group.
Former engineers Jennifer Weishaupt and her husband Eric became first-time restaurateurs in 2008 when they opened Ruby Slipper Caf in their New Orleans neighborhood of Mid-City. Finding immediate success, Jennifer and Eric soon expanded their company by establishing Ruby Slipper restaurants across town. When we last spoke with Jennifer back in 2016, she was in the process of opening a new restaurant in Orange Beach, Alabama, her 6th. Today, she's celebrating the opening of her newest in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's the 13th. What a difference 3 years makes. With an emphasis on breakfast and brunch, her fast-growing empire has spread across 4 states, with restaurants going by the name Ruby Slipper or Ruby Sunshine. I asked Jennifer how she decided where to take her popular export and where she's going next.
So we opened in Mobile about a year ago. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary at that location. And we're in the downtown area, which is really close to New Orleans. It's actually a really fun, small city. You know, we had just had the opportunity to go and look at some property in Mobile, and we really fell in love with some of the opportunities there and didn't really see a big landscape of breakfast brunch, kind of what we do all day breakfast brunch. And so we kind of took a leap of faith and found a building that was under renovation, a historic building that really reminded us actually a lot of our CBD location at 200 Magazine here in New Orleans, where it has that corner entrance and is a historic bank building. So we just felt like it was us, and we hired a really amazing team there who have just done a phenomenal job with bringing our kind of the heart of our business, which is really all about New Orleans food, culture, the love of all things that we have, and translating that to a different market. And then our next Alabama location will be in Birmingham.
All right, so the big expansion into Tennessee. Before long, you will be in Franklin, Knoxville, and Nashville?
Yes. Yeah. So we opened Franklin, Tennessee is a small suburb city on the south side of Nashville. It's about 20 minutes outside the city. And it's a real historic little town, and we're right on the town square, again, in a historic renovation. It's also a bank building. We have an affinity for bank buildings. And so we're in this really cool space, and we opened that under our sister brand, Ruby Sunshine. So we launched a new brand last fall with the intention of opening the Tennessee market. And so we have Ruby Slipper here in New Orleans and the Gulf Coast, and we have Ruby Sunshine in what we call our expansion markets. So in Tennessee right now, in Franklin and in Knoxville, and soon to be in Nashville proper.
Is the menu remaining exactly the same? Or as you move into new states, new areas, are you having to tweak and change things a little?
Well, it's interesting because we went down this path when we first opened in Pensacola, which was our first location outside of New Orleans. And we thought going into that there was some menu adjustments we were going to have to make to be successful in that market. After all, not everybody wants to have brunch all day. They're business people. They're used to eating lunch, or people don't drink mimosas at 7 in the morning in other places. Well, what we found was that, in fact, people will eat brunch all day, and that was what they wanted. So we had shifted in that case. We had shifted the menu a little more to the lunch focus, and we had even added, as an example, we had added a grouper sandwich because we felt like that's kind of the iconic thing that everybody has. And what we learned was nobody really wanted that. They would go somewhere else for that. They wanted to come to Ruby Slipper to experience the food that they had had in New Orleans, or what they had heard about, these Benedicts and French toasts and pancakes and those sort of things. So we actually kind of went back to the menu that we had here in the New Orleans market. And so now, boosted by our confidence in that experiment, as we've gone into other markets, we haven't made those adjustments. Instead, where we focused that, kind of the creativity and the culinary influence of those new markets is in how we consider and build our seasonal specials. So, for example, when we launched in the spring in Franklin, we did a development project with our culinary team, and we launched 3 Tennessee-inspired specials. But, of course, we always want to put our own twist on them. So we did, like, a hot catfish Benedict. So, of course, everybody knows about Nashville hot chicken and loves Nashville hot chicken. We didn't want to do quite that. We thought hot catfish is a little more of that Louisiana influence or the Southern Gulf influence. And it was a huge hit. And
I bet. I think you could start a new trend over there.
So we did that, and we did, my other favorite was we did a banana pudding stuffed French toast. In Tennessee, banana pudding is the dessert you always see on the menu, like bread pudding is here in Louisiana. And I have to say it was one of my favorite stuffed French toasts that we've done in the history of our 11-year history. So
it sounds delicious.
It was delicious.
Now, of course, the thing that every brunch place must have is coffee. You do have a proprietary Ruby Slipper blend.
Yes.
And it is constant throughout all of the stores?
Absolutely. So we have a breakfast blend, which is what we, brew in the restaurants if you order hot coffee. It's about 50% Colombian, and then about a quarter Ecuadorian and a quarter Peruvian. My husband, Eric, and I just got back from a trip to Colombia last week, where we went with our coffee roasters and their exporter and importer to meet the farmers who actually grow the beans that become our Ruby Slipper breakfast blend. And our coffee roaster is local here in New Orleans. It's French Truck Coffee, and we've been partnered with them since they really were just operating a roaster, a small micro roaster in his garage, and the first yellow French truck, actual truck. And now, of course, they have grown a brick and mortar coffee business.
They're in Tennessee, too.
Yes, they are. They're in Memphis. And one of the things we really love about French Truck is that they roast to order, so that you really have the highest level of all those coffee oils and essences at the time that we grind it and brew it for you. And if our team's doing it right, you should definitely want a second cup.
Are there any other iconic brands or perhaps ingredients that are so specially sourced that they're constant at all the restaurants?
Yes, we're very specific about our sourcing, and we do quite a lot of development work. Maybe this is back to our engineering roots, where, when you find the right raw product, you stay with it. Of course, we use Leidenheimer French bread, and we use that in all our markets. We have a Tasso product out of the Lafayette area that, we've tried a few other brands, but they just don't give us the same Tasso cream. And so we're kind of married to that product. We did a development, and we do a Steen's cane syrup butter, where we take Steen's, we reduce it down to molasses, we compound it with butter, add a little salt, and we serve that with every biscuit that people order, whatever the dish is.
It's so delicious.
It's so delicious. We call it crack butter. It's really delicious. And it's interesting because so few people outside of Louisiana know anything about cane syrup. And so it gives our team the opportunity to talk about, what is cane syrup and where does it come from and why do people in Louisiana care about it? Well, because sugar is a huge crop in Louisiana.
Well, you and your team really are significant culinary ambassadors. Obviously, engineers are very well suited to the restaurant business, if you all are any examples. And
thank you.
Your husband's pet peeve are wobbly tables.
Yes.
Are all the tables at all the locations still bolted down?
They're not all bolted down, but they have now made table bases with these self-leveling feet, so he won't buy anything besides that. And if there's a couple locations that have been around a long time, and so they have the, kind of regular old school bases, and those managers know that they better have shove-its, not shove-its are like a little wedge that you can buy, a little plastic wedge that levels out your tables, not sugar packets. Definitely not sugar packets.
What's the future like? I mean, I don't know how you could have ever dreamed what the present might be. So how do you look at the future?
So we have our future mapped out for this year. We have 2 more restaurants to open, one in Birmingham that I mentioned, and also in Hillsborough Village, which is a really cool neighborhood in Nashville that's really close to Vanderbilt University. And then my husband handles site selection, so he's the real estate guy. He goes out and looks for cool places that he's the one who has the vision of, what can this dilapidated building become. And then he does design and construction, and then he hands it over to me and my team, and we kind of take everything from there. So he's actively out getting his 2020 locations lined up. We're not ready to announce any of them, but altogether we're opening 5 locations this year. So going from 10 restaurants to 15 restaurants, so about a 50% growth in 1 year. So that's quite a leap.
That's ambitious.
Yeah. And then we'll open probably 5 next year. So I'm not trying to think too much further ahead than that right now.
Well, congratulations. I'm so proud to have had this whole phenomena come out of New Orleans. So thanks for the incredible work that you've been doing, and thanks for coming to see us again.
Thank you. We love the opportunity to be here. I appreciate it, Poppy.
Jennifer Weishaupt, founder and CEO of the Ruby Slipper Restaurant Group. Coming up next, we visit Tujague's and Toup South for an authentic taste of a rollicking drag brunch. But first, how did brunch originate in the first place? And how does it tie into the history of drag? Stay tuned, and we'll answer that question when we come right back. I'm Poppy Tooker, and you're listening to Louisiana Eats, edible content for Louisiana food lovers. Louisiana Eats is brought to you with major support from Camellia Brand, Beans Done Right, a New Orleans tradition since 1923, and from Ralph's on the Park, overlooking City Park's ancient oaks, serving locally sourced Gulf seafood, meats, and farm-fresh produce, all presented with a global spin by Chef Chip Flanagan. Lunch, dinner, Saturday and Sunday brunch, and private parties at 900 City Park Avenue in Mid-City. Here's this week's culinary quiz question, brought to you with support from Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Where did brunch originate in the first place? And how does it tie into the history of drag? Both stories follow a path to the mainstream shaped by class and gender, each with their own illicit beginnings. While there are many different theories on where brunch originated, historians see an inextricable link between breakfast and the drinking culture. Brunch popularized daytime drinking and the practice of mixing alcohol with juices, spawning such cocktails as the Bloody Mary and the mimosa. This new wave of approachable, often citrusy cocktails helped remove the stigma of day drinking for women and the middle class. By the 1970s and 80s, brunch moved from the world of elite restaurants and hotels to find a home in more casual eateries, becoming what it looks like today. While there's no absolute definition of drag, the art of exaggerated cross-dressing for performance has its origins in vaudeville. It was through vaudeville that the first world-famous female impersonator came to exist, a man named Julian Eltinge. Incidentally, Eltinge was a frequent diner at Tujague's restaurant, where Madame Begay invented what was essentially the city's first brunch in pre-Civil War New Orleans. She called it the butcher's breakfast, in a nod to the butcher's stalls of the French market, located across the street from her famous eatery. During the era of Prohibition, drag performances flourished in underground clubs and speakeasies. As homosexuality became more criminalized in America, drag became increasingly relegated to gay bars and underground spaces. In the 1950s and 60s, it found conventional acceptance in nightclubs like Club My Oh My in New Orleans, where a mostly heterosexual audience would come for dinner and a show. To avoid being arrested for female impersonation, which was illegal at the time, drag performers would add a Mr. in front of their names. And while Mardi Gras crews held pageant-style drag events at their carnival balls in the 1960s, they often had to remain hidden to avoid being busted by the police. By the 1970s, public opinion began to change. A restaurant named Lucky Chang's opened across from Antoine's in the mid-90s, complete with sassy drag waitresses and drag performances. Today, both drag and brunch have entered into the mainstream, becoming a part of everyday life. I can't think of a better pairing of traditions. I'm Poppy Tooker, and drag brunch makes for some real Louisiana eats. In 2015, I started a series of pop-up drag brunches benefiting Crescent Care, a New Orleans health clinic that originated as the No AIDS Task Force in the 1980s. As I've hosted these fundraisers over the years, I've gotten to know some extraordinary drag queens, many whom I've had the great pleasure of profiling in my new book, Drag Queen Brunch. At a recent Sunday morning pop-up at Tujague's restaurant, I spoke with 4 drag beauties as they prepared for that morning's show. I asked them all to tell us a bit about themselves and their fabulous profession.
Good morning. Here we are at Tujague's at one of Poppy's pop-up drag brunches. Now, Debbie with a D, you're the mistress of ceremonies this morning. Tell me what it takes to put together a drag brunch.
Well, first of all, I'm not the mistress. You're the mistress of the drag brunches. I just get to impart the drag upon the audience once they get here. So it takes about, 4 or 5 hours to get ready in the morning, to make sure all the sound equipment is up and running, to make sure the makeup is on and set. You have to shave and shower, deodorant, all that stuff, so that you can put on a good show for everyone that comes out.
Drag brunches on average start at about 11 a.m. What time did this beauty get started this morning?
This morning started at 5 a.m. Yeah. After a full night last night, too. Yeah. But that's the gig. That's the job. You're a drag queen. You're up late. You're out late. You're up early. And also then this afternoon, I'm going to pass right out at 2 o'clock. Done. Out. In bed.
Now, Princess Stephanie, you are the grande dame of drag in New Orleans. How long have you been at this?
As you can see in the new Drag Queen Brunch cookbook, I was on the Titanic on the staircase when they took that photo. It was so lovely.
Misty, please introduce yourself and explain why you have chosen the name you have.
My name is Misty Bonet, and the name basically comes from Pokemon.
Pokemon. And, there is something sort of anime about you.
Well, thank you. That's the aesthetic that I try to go for.
Laveau, are you busy? Or could you... you're so beautiful.
My name is Laveau Contraire, and I chose Laveau because I wanted a strong, magical name. And I had a dream, and I heard someone refer to me as Laveau in the dream, and I woke up and I was like, well, that's it. Then Contraire because au contraire, and it gives you sort of the play on words.
Now, why do you do drag in the first place?
It's my favorite form of creative expression. I feel like I can use all of my skills and talents in the creating of the costume, to the styling of the hair, to makeup, and then performance, which is my favorite part, which is basically sharing my story and joy with the audience.
All of you here do drag and drag brunches. What is the difference in the crowd, in the experience? What makes you do the drag brunch?
Drag brunch is usually people that know what they're coming to and know what they're expecting. And a regular night show, it's like, I'm going to stop by, I'm going to see what's happening, but I'm not going to stay for the whole thing. So drag brunch is more connecting, let me talk to you afterwards, get to know you. I like this setup.
Debbie, you do both drag brunch and regular drag shows. What's the difference, and what do you love about drag shows?
So I think the difference is, like Misty said, people coming to a drag brunch kind of know that they're coming and they're going to bring dollars. If it's for charity, especially like yours are, you kind of expect that relationship with the audience. At the bar, it's kind of like for our LGBT family. It's like a ball, or you can show up in your outfit, show your new look off, do your new number, and kind of hang out.
Drag brunch is a little bit different because, like they said, people know what they're getting into and it's very exciting, but it's always more upbeat and up-tempo than maybe a midnight drag show. And food, everyone loves food. It makes people happy, so everyone's in a good mood. You get a breakfast and a show, and it's just a fun environment.
It is very difficult sometimes to walk by the tables and not take the lovely food off their plates and put it in your own mouth. But I concentrate on it being for charity, so I take their money and I give it to the needy.
Where in the world do you ladies shop?
Amazon.com. No, there are plenty of shops in New Orleans where you can get some discount drag. Hit me up if you need some tips. But anywhere where they sell size 14 shoes.
Amazon, Wish, and then just local shops around the quarter that do costuming, because we do costuming here in New Orleans.
Now, you, my darling Princess Stephanie, you must have quite a wardrobe.
About 2,000 square feet. And I recently removed 120 shoes and gave them a pair of shoes and gave those to Bridge House so that they could sell. And I still have another 400 that need to be removed to someplace else. And being I'm a little plus size on the other side of a 14, I go where all the plus sizes are sold, and when I find beautiful things, I tell every one of my plus size beauties.
And the jewelry. Now, Princess Stephanie, you are known for wearing the real thing.
Well, if you're going to be real, you might as well have something that's nice and real. And I tell all of the girls, you should always have a precious pair of earrings and a necklace that does cost more than a week of your pay or drag pay, because when you go to events, people like to see that you have something of worth owned because you're spending your money on luxury instead of a car payment or to have your garbage picked up.
Now, I know that people would love to know about the dichotomy of drag life and real life that sometimes intersects. For instance, when you're not Debbie with a D, who are you and what do you do?
Out of drag, my name is Joey. I actually work at Crescent Care, which is a locally funded, federally qualified health center that does a lot of health care for the LGBTQ community here in New Orleans, but also for everyone. We do a lot of like HIV screenings, hepatitis C, syphilis, all that kind of stuff, and I manage those programs.
Princess Stephanie, tell me about your life when you're not performing in drag. We can find you in drag anyway.
That's correct, Poppy. I bartend over 40 to 60 hours a week, and according to Stoli Vodka, I am one of the 6 full-time professional bartending drag queens in America, which sounds kind of bizarre, but most of the other girls bartend on a Saturday or for Halloween or for Mardi Gras, if they have Mardi Gras in the rest of the world. So I find that entertaining and fun, and pretty much people want to come and be served by Princess Stephanie because she's funny and witty and will give you some advice about your life, if possible.
Misty, when you're not in drag, what are you up to?
I work at Justine's on Charters.
Oh, so we can drop by and have a little visit with you there.
Yeah, I'll bring you your food. I don't say much, but you'll get a glimpse.
Laveau, do you have another life outside of drag?
Drag is my main life these days, but I also teach with a nonprofit in New Orleans called KidSmart. It's where teaching artists go into the classroom and collaborate with the teachers to do arts integrated lessons. So I get to be a music teacher by day and a drag queen by night. It's really fun.
And you also are one of the great New Orleans Public Library drag queen storytellers, aren't you?
Yes, I actually did one yesterday, and it's just so much fun because the parents are super supportive and the kids absolutely love it. Because drag is kind of like the highest expression of like playing dress up, kids respond super well to it. They get really invested in the story that you're telling, and you can just see it on their faces that they think you're superheroes. But that's another thing that makes Drag Brunch so much fun, is that kids are invited because it's during the daytime and it's not in a dark bar. We usually get a crowd that's more family friendly and cater our drag to support that in a way.
You were a teacher before you were a drag artist, huh?
Yes, and I think it kind of helps because you kind of know how to command a crowd. If you can handle a room full of 5-year-olds, you can probably handle a room full of adults that are slightly intoxicated. So it kind of translates. And if I ever need to get a crowd's attention, I have a ton of attention grabbers.
That was Debbie with a D, Princess Stephanie, Misty Bonet, and Laveau Contraire. The following Sunday morning, we held another pop-up drag brunch at Toup South, right here in the Southern Food and Beverage Museum. Diners enjoyed brunch, bottomless mimosas, and drag performances, all in the name of charity. The brunch also gave me the chance to speak with a young drag queen from New Orleans about her drag persona, and to hear the story of her unofficial drag debut.
Hello, this is Coochie Leachy, a local New Orleans drag entertainer.
Coochie, I just love you, and I am so glad that you are in the Drag Queen Brunch book. Tell me about
the different vibe. Tell me about the different experience when you're a drag entertainer.
Whew. It's very, very hard on the body, I'm not going to lie. But I mean, when you're working 18 hours in heels, then, it just kind of happens. But the thrill of being able to just strut out there, do your stuff, feel pretty, look pretty, and, be able to entertain and enjoy the company of others is kind of, what keeps me going.
Now, what about drag brunches? Because doing a drag brunch, well, that's hard work because, first of all, they start before noon.
Yeah, I was definitely struggling to get out of bed. It was so comfy today. But again, it's just kind of worth it. Like once I'm up and about and ready to go, that energy just kind of like keeps me going. And, the food is also a plus.
What inspires your drag? Tell us a little bit about your look and why.
So I listen to a lot of K-pop, Korean pop music. Their culture in their music industry is a lot different than, say the American industry. It's a little more manufactured, but it is very, very closely tight-knit. They are very interested in their aesthetic. They do a lot of choreography. Their music is on point. And the more I do drag, the more I kind of realize that Coochie is kind of her own K-pop idol, and so that's the kind of vibe that I like to serve and show people, kind of introduce them to more K-pop into their, typical drag brunches or just their typical entertainment life.
It is a different sound, a different look. I just love what you do. Now, I would love it if you would tell us how you began doing drag, because that is such a special New Orleans story.
So, like I said, I am a New Orleans local. I went to Isidore Newman for middle and high school. And senior year, it was in 2009, October 2009, for Halloween. I had just started getting into Lady Gaga. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. This was during the Fame era. She had this beautiful white dress with crystals all over it. And I saw that dress and I was like, you know what? It's my last year. I might as well go out with a bang, and I really want to try wearing this dress. And so, I had my mom and my grandma help me make it. I made the crystals out of paper origami, and it was a riot. It was a hoot. Walking into the school and seeing everybody be like, who is this? Oh my gosh. And so that was my first unofficial first debut in drag. But my drag mom, Laveau Contraire, who's also with us today, she gave me my first show a year ago in March. I co-hosted a drag race viewing party with her, and it's been downhill ever since.
Or uphill, darling. It's just been fabulous. I love it when you are part of the ensemble. And one of the interesting things about you is that after your debut in your senior year at Newman, you went on to Loyola, and you actually have a very serious music education.
Yeah, Loyola is great for music. Obviously, that's why I went there. I study vocal performance with a music industry minor, so I have a classical training background. I sing with the New Orleans Opera Chorus still. And with the music industry, like I said, I listen to a lot of pop music, and that's kind of more what I want to do overall. So I love, listening to pop and recreating and writing my own pop music. I just released my first album, my first full-length album last month. Super exciting. And yeah, so it's just very busy, a lot of entertaining, a lot of dancing, a lot of singing, a lot of performing in general.
Well, Coochie, in your musical entertaining life, you are sort of binary there too. Would you explain that?
Yes, so I am male-bodied. I am, assigned male at birth. I kind of identify as genderqueer normally, but I mean, if you're going to call me a guy, I'm not going to be too mad about it. If you're going to call me a girl, feel free to. But with my music, so my stage name for my music stuff is Sora. And I don't know, I think just because that's definitely kind of what I grew up with, even starting from as a kid, just being in this particular experience and lifestyle. Whereas Coochie is a lot more fresh. She's only a year old. And so with my music, I kind of play around with the binary and blend it, but it definitely is a lot more masculine, whereas Coochie is definitely a lot more feminine.
And what's the name of your new CD?
My new CD is called Paramount. You can find it on Spotify, on iTunes. I just released a music video called Only for Tonight, which is on YouTube as well.
Oh, I can't wait to see. Thank you so much, Coochie. It's always a pleasure having you part of the Drag Brunch Ensemble.
The pleasure is eternally mine. I love you so much, Poppy. I'm gonna have some fun, even if I'm the only one, just dancing on my own till the night is through.
That was Coochie Leechie, drag queen extraordinaire.
And when the morning comes, we'll go home, a little bit hungover and alone.
Coming up next, we head to Shreveport to get a taste of a raucous Sunday brunch at Marilyn's Place. Louisiana Eats returns after a break. I'm Poppy Tooker, and you're listening to Louisiana Eats, edible content for Louisiana food lovers. If today's show has whetted your appetite for a drag brunch experience, our next Poppy's Pop-Up Drag Brunch, benefiting Crescent Care's Food for Friends program, will be at the Parlor at the Pontchartrain Hotel on Sunday, September 8th, with food by Jack Rose. And oh, the food! Ambrosia salad, short rib daube with eggs and grits, and fallen chocolate cake, complete with sparkling cocktail pairings. The food will be delicious, and the drag queens will be beautiful, so it's sure to sell out quickly. Reserve your spot today online at theparlornola.com. To find out where Poppy's Pop-Up Drag Brunches will be held next, go to our calendar page at poppytooker.com, where you can also order your own copy of Drag Queen Brunch. And now, back to Louisiana Eats. Chris J. covers the food scene in the northern part of our delicious state. He blogs about food at 20by49.com, and he's also our Louisiana Eats roving reporter. Chris, great to see you again.
It's great to be here, Poppy. Thanks for having me back.
What are we eating today?
You know, let's just assume it's Sunday morning, okay? Let's
Okay.
get that out of the way first. It's Sunday morning in Shreveport. There is one place you have got to experience, and that is Marilyn's Place. It's a walk-up, restaurant you can walk or bike to from several surrounding areas. And it used to be a gas station, but it's been converted into this really fun Cajun and Creole restaurant that's run by a chef named Boz Balcom. Boz cooked for 20 years aboard a Carnival Cruise Line ship, and he decided to move back to Shreveport-Bossier. He was born there and learned to cook in New Orleans. And he cooked in New Orleans for about 10 years as well. But that Sunday brunch is absolutely insane. It's an unhinged kind of experience. If you're looking for a Sunday morning that's basically a continuation of Saturday night, this is where to find it. He calls it drink till you drown, but he's also going to serve up some wonderful food while you're enjoying the $15 all-you-can-drink cocktails that begin at 10 a.m.
Yeah, Stephen Peterson, and here at Maryland's Eatery, one of Highland's prime cafes. It's probably the top place people like to meet and socialize. There's a few places that need to pick up the slack in between the 2 to 8 p.m. hours that could continue on. We all dream of having a real Sunday fun day, but Maryland's is definitely the kickoff point. Well, I've been here 2 years, and I found out about Maryland's within the first summer. And once I realized just how affordable and nice the place was, and that you could bike and walk no problem, I mean, it's just a no-brainer for me.
Order for Jane.
So what are those cocktails he's serving? Probably Bloody Marys, mimosas,
Absolutely.
screwdrivers.
Yes.
It's all you can drink: mimosas, Madras, Bloody Marys. Some beer involved in there. Great Raft, I have to plug them. I'm Barry Butler, and I've been coming here for probably the past 3.5 years. This is definitely the tribal hangout, or as we like to call it, church. Well, just being honest there.
It's also a really progressive and fun place. For example, when marriage equality was, passed on a federal level, his was the one restaurant that said, "Come here, we're throwing a huge party." And there must have been 700 people. They were spilling out into the parking lot. It was complete insanity. And he was handing out free drinks. He was in a great, great mood that day. And it was really nice to see a local restaurant say, "Let's celebrate this right now. Come to Maryland's Place. We're going to party."
Well, Tell me about the food that we're washing down with all these cocktails.
It's sort of like a big Southern comfort food twist on Cajun and Creole. So his crawfish étouffée, his jambalaya, these biscuits and boudin specials that he runs, things like that may be sort of unrecognizable, for example, to people from southwestern Louisiana. They may kind of think, well, this is a little bit modified take on some of our classics. And he absolutely wears that on his sleeve. He wants it to be bigger, richer, comfort food versions of Cajun and Creole classics.
Yum. Okay. Well, as usual, I'm hungry. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's make sure it's a Sunday when we go, and we can hit that bar too.
If 3, 4, 5 of us are gathered in the name of Maryland's, it's a good thing.
That's Chris J., our Louisiana Eats roving reporter. Food and worship go together like red beans and rice. Whether it's the repast after the loss of a loved one or selling fish plates on Fridays to raise money for the choir's new robes, many church services include both food for the body and food for the soul. New Orleans, of course, has taken this to new heights with the Gospel Brunch. At this year's Essence Festival, I was fortunate to attend the Jane Club's Gospel Brunch featuring the Zion Harmonizers. While there, I took the opportunity to speak with Brizella Briscoe of the Harmonizers and Jess Sano, co-founder of the Jane Club.
My name is Brizella Earl Briscoe Sr. I am the president and managing director of the Zion Harmonizers Gospel Singers in Louisiana. We've been together, the group itself, for 80 years. We were organized in 1939 by the late Bishop Benjamin Maxim. He was here 4 years and he went into the ministry. He turned it over to Mr. Sherman Washington, who stayed for 70 years. He passed in 2011. I had to make a vow that I would keep this group going. And I told him if God would lead me and guide me, I would do just that, And he has so thus far.
When the group first started, was your singing restricted mostly to church?
Mostly, and a cappella. But we did do some other things. We do weddings, events such as this, private engagement. 50 years ago, whatever the date was, Mr. Sherman Washington met Mr. Quint Davis, and they started together the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. And we've been going ever since. We've been all over, pretty most places in the world. We've been to Europe, but the group has about 21 times. I've been over about 15 times. We've been to Spain, we've been to Brazil, we've been to Holland. We've seen so many castles, we've sang in castles, and Lord has blessed us tremendously.
What happens when people first hear the Zion Harmonizers for the first time?
Well, sometimes there's a language barrier, but the music seems to permeate and supersede everything. When we sing in music, it's one people, one, togetherness. And so I'm enjoying it. I've been here, like I say, this is my 33rd year, and I wouldn't do anything else. I can't think of anything. When I came into this group, I had my own business, and I used to lose money. And my wife said, how can you do this? And this is what I love. Thank God for a good wife who understands. I say, I got to go. And so sometimes I wasn't able to make it, but most of the time I was. And we've done well. The Lord has tremendously blessed us.
This gospel brunch phenomenon, when did you all start performing at gospel brunches?
We started with the House of Blues, and we stayed there for 20 years. We were the house group. We sometimes 2 or 3 times a month we were there, Of course, they would bring in other groups also, but we were a stapler.
Unfortunately, our interview was cut short as Mr. Briscoe was called back to the stage. But the Harmonizers are still a staple. They can be found every year in the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival's Gospel Tent.
My name is Jess Zano. I'm the co-founder of the Jane Club.
After the 2016 elections, Jess Zano felt a calling to make an impact on women's lives. She envisioned a workspace that was supportive, welcoming, and sympathetic. This twinkle of an idea grew into the Los Angeles-based Jane Club. An invitation from the Essence Festival led to a Jane Club pop-up right here in New Orleans. I spoke with Jess during their gospel brunch to learn what inspired her to create this village.
I started my professional entertainment career when I was 17 years old, and I got pregnant with my first and only child at 38, and I didn't know about motherhood, so I just assumed I'd roll right back into work. I'm the breadwinner for my family, so when I had the baby, I had X'd out the date. I would go back to work, and it was 2 months after I gave birth. I had a C-section. My body was still healing, and I wasn't able to understand and also adapt quickly to both being the professional and mother. And that's when I had an aha moment. The Jane Club is a shared workspace with on-site childcare, impactful events, community programming, and an entire village of services that are designed and built out for women and the working mother. And that's sort of the essence of who we are. But who we really are is a movement, a matriarchal oasis, a community of women who are rewriting the rules on women in work. We are here to create a new way of working for women so that we are supported as mothers and as professionals. So we are creating it day by day and nurturing all of the needs of the Janes and each other.
Jess, why are you here in New Orleans?
We were in Austin a few months ago at the South by Southwest Festival, also at the Jane Club in Texas, a weekend pop-up. And Khalees, who is one of our Janes, she had been on the cover of Essence magazine. So the Essence magazine women had come by and they said, "Oh, you need to do this at Essence Festival." And I said, "You do not even need to ask me twice." I love the celebration of people and culture, specifically the celebration of women of color that happens at Essence Festival. It's their 25th anniversary, and I thought this is a fantastic opportunity for the Jane Club as a new business to really build out a safe space for women of color to celebrate themselves. We're here to represent these women who are creating culture, living their best lives. We are women together, and as such, the Jane Club New Orleans is here to serve women being women. We really made sure to work with all local artists and chefs to create the experience in terms of food. We've got our snowballs. We brought in cultural communities like the Ashe Cultural Center. We've worked with the Museum of Free People of Color to build out the art story here. So we really infused the energy of New Orleans into the space, but kept our California cool vibe as well. And I think we did a pretty good job. Saturday night, we had a welcome dinner with Mayor LaToya Cantrell, and Miss Tina Knowles Lawson walked in the door. And when that happened, I thought, wow, we really did it.
That was Jess Zano, co-founder of the Jane Club. That's it for this week's edition of Louisiana Eats, edible content for Louisiana food lovers. Catch up on previous editions and hear all about upcoming special events by visiting poppytooker.com. You can find videos, recipes, and even order cookbooks there. Louisiana Eats is made possible with major support from Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen, Zatarain's, and from Camellia Brand Beans. Additional support for Louisiana Eats is provided by the Shreveport-Bossier Convention and Tourist Bureau and from the Bourbon House, From oysters to redfish, serving fresh Gulf seafood and American whiskey on Bourbon Street. Original theme music composed by David Pomerleau and performed by Johnny Sketch and the Dirty Notes. Big thanks to senior producer Joe Schreiner and special projects manager Reggie Morris. And to our business manager and social media maven, Maddie Mullidew. Come visit us anytime in our Louisiana Eats studios at the Southern Food and Beverage Museum. We're on Instagram and Facebook too. Louisiana Eats is a production of Poppy Tooker Broadcasting.